Nice to meet you all. I'm Tom. I'm one of the volunteers at Beamisch, and I'm going to take you down what was a real working mine. I'll make it adult friendly, the tour, but I'll make it children friendly as well. I'll bring the kids in when I can as well. Yeah. Just before we start the tour and before I say anything of any detail, just a couple of things. First of all, by all means take photographs, ask me questions as you were doing. I'm sorry I had to go out there. One of the other lads was being asked some questions which he didn't know, so I was trying to share some information. Ask me questions if you want to. On the health and safety side, keep your helmets on all the time, just like I have, just mine looks a bit different from yours. It is very uneven. I'm looking at the height of some of you, and this is a great opportunity because you are going as low as 4'6", start doing your bending exercises now, yeah? For those of you who can remember policemen on the beat, that's what they used to do. Yeah? So some of us of a certain age. Evening up, yeah. Dixon and Doc Green stuff. That'll go completely over most people's heads. Another quick thing to talk about is, it is uneven under there. And we've got to mention toilets here. Yeah, there are no toilets underground. Yeah, now there is a lot of brown stuff under there, kids. Yeah, down there. So what I'd suggest you do is you pitch your noses and step out of the brown stuff, because I think one or two of the lads got caught short this morning when they were down there. Right? No, you rest assured it's not that stuff. Oh, that's all right for you then, isn't it? No, I'm only teasing. It is iron ore deposits. So there is water in this pit, and therefore when there's water, the water floods and it brings some iron ore deposits down. So some coal mines in County Down would have extracted stone and coal and iron. Not this one, but there is some in there. Right, enough. Let me talk to you about where you're going today. I'll talk about ages, and then when we get down to the coal phase, we'll talk about the very important thing, and that's wages and how much you're going to be earning to work down there. This is a drift mine, and this mine was built, but we called it sunk, in 1855, and it closed in 1958. So it was working for 103 years as a productive coal mine. And it was a drift mine, and that's the best way to describe it, is that you would have drifted into work. So imagine instead of it being a reasonably nice September day, it's a cold November morning. This mine, when it was working, was 1.5 miles long at its maximum. You'd have been going down with your pick and shovel at 4'6", yeah, working for 8 hours with your pick and shovel or pushing the tubs out, and you'd have been completely knackered, completely shattered, and had to walk back out and then start again and again. 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, Sundays off. Yeah. There were deep mines near here, and the nearest deep mine was between where we see the Eden picnic area as you come in, between the main roundabout and the car park entrance. And that was Beamish's second pit, and that was 400 feet deep, about 122 metres deep, to put it into metrics for you. And you'd have travelled at approximately 3 metres a second into total darkness. Yeah. To put that into context, 200 metres is about 30 floors of a high-rise building. So you're travelling 15 floors or 20 floors of a high-rise building into darkness at approximately 4.5 miles an hour. That's the speed that they went. Ages. How old are you? 10. How old are you?
8.
And you?
12.
And you? No, don't answer that. No, only you.
Yes, we can.
In 1913, the period that you're going to go down to now, to work underground as a putter pushing the tubs, you had to be 16 years old. You could work above ground as a screener from the age of 12 with some of the older miners who couldn't work, and that would be taking debris off and stone, anything that wasn't coal, cleaning it as it was often known. At 21, then you could start working the machinery and using your pick and shovel. But go back from 1913 to 1842, and in 1842, children as young as 6 years old and the women were working down the mines. Yeah, girls and boys. At 10, you'd have been in service in 1913, yeah? You'd have been getting close to it, yeah? You'd have been at the big house, yeah? Making the fires, emptying the bedpans, doing all the domestic stuff, yeah? But in 1842, you would have been a trapper, opening doors every 10 metres apart to let the good air in and the bad air out, because there wouldn't have been any proper ventilation in those days. And letting your mums out, because you would have been trappers, picking up on the women there. But instead of pushing the tubs out, you'd have had 2 ropes around your shoulders and a metal chain around between your legs, and you would have been hauling out like the ponies, yeah? But in 1842, the Shaftesbury Act came in that prevented, or was supposed to prevent, children and women working down the mines. Lord Londonderry, whose statue is in the centre of Durham, in the marketplace, fighting in the Crimean War against the Russians with his sabre and his big stallion, yeah, was one of the major coal owners, and he opposed the Shaftesbury Act on the basis that it was denying families from earning a living, yeah. Charles Dickens said some very derogatory things about him, but even by 1850, 8 years later, there was only one mining inspector in the whole of the United Kingdom trying to enforce that law. So did children work down the mines and women after 1844? Well, certainly yes, yeah, but not legally down the mines. Any questions you'd like to ask? No? Right, we're going to go down the mine now. By all means, film as much as you like, sir.
Thank you.
I've no problem at all. We're going to stop halfway down. You'll see a no road, and that no road, we're going to take a right turn. That no road is a separate entrance into the Beamisch second pit that I mentioned, the deep mine. That one closed 10 years later in 1967, 1968, and this was used to take some of the surplus coal out from the higher seams, and it was also a means of escape for the miners who were in the deep mine, working 400 feet below the ground, yeah? So, follow me, and watch your head. It's just higher again.
Oh, Jesus.
There you go. Yeah. Out of the hat.
Ow.
Yeah, that's right.
I thought I was really short. No, I can still stand. Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can step in if you want to as well, by all means do so, yeah? There's plenty of space here, yeah? Right, so you can come in next to me if you want to, if you can see a little bit more, yeah? Are you leaning on that pit prop, young man? Are you leaning on that pit prop? No, it's alright, you can do it. But if you hear it creak and groan like a squeaky door, will you let me know? Yeah? Oh. Because that means that the mine's going to collapse, yeah? But no, it's not, don't worry, pet, right? But they did use softwood. They used softwood so that it had a little bit of elasticity, if I can get that word out, yeah? And a bit of flexibility. And that links me on to the stick that I've got in my hand as well. You're probably just thinking, oh, he's just a bit old, this person taking me down the mine, it just helps them get in and out. But it's not true. The miners would take them down, or the deputies, the man in charge, would take a yardstick down, and they would be working a yard before they're propped. So anything more than a yard, and there's more likelihood of subsidence, yeah? So they're using that in the dark as a gauge, and put another prop up, yeah? And so on and so on. And that's the way that they operated it. So it has a specific purpose as well. Right, let me tell you a little bit about 1913. Now, I'm going to throw some statistics at you, and in fact, because you look a really intelligent group. Is that true, yeah? Yes. I'm going to ask you a couple of quiz questions as well, about mining. But in 1913, it was record production across the whole of the country. Never in the pre-industrialised, mechanised coal mining industry had so much coal been taken out of the mines of the United Kingdom, and only the Welsh took more than the Durham miners out. In 1913, the Durham miners took 41.5 million tonnes approximately of coal out in 1 year, that year of 1913, and 92% of it with a pick and shovel. We'll talk about the other 8% in a minute. But in 1913 there was 304 coal mines in County Durham employing approximately 166,000 men and boys. 29% of the male workforce was working in coal mining, below ground or above ground. The other 8% they used to take the coal by using dynamite, but using this machine here, which is the Siscol machine. Sorry, I'm just letting you in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
When you were waiting in the queue, you'll have seen some boilers, some containers behind. They're called egg boilers, or commonly known as egg boilers. They would have been stacked up on bricks and filled half with water and coal fired from underneath, and that would have generated steam to operate that machine. It punches into the coal and cuts across the coal. It cuts coal 4 times quicker than a man can. It employs 2 men to handle it though, yeah? A bit like a machine gun if you want, yeah? Somebody to load the ammunition. I've never used that analogy before, but a bit similar, and somebody to fire it, yeah? That's the good news for the coal owners. They produce more coal. The bad news is for the coal miners. Question 1. What is the average lifespan of a man in 1913? In terms of age?
40.
40, much higher. Not much higher, but
55.
55, yeah, 55. What's the average lifespan of a coal miner in 1913?
19.
40.
40, getting close, 45. 45. So you're losing 10, you're losing 10 years of your life working in the mines. Jeremy Paxman, who did University Challenge and has done all sorts of news programs, wrote a really good book with some researchers a couple of years ago called Black Gold. And he estimated that in 1913 in the United Kingdom there was a man dying every 6 hours in a coal mine in County Durham, and somebody being severely disabled every 2 hours. And they would have been deafened as well, because that was 4 times louder than a road drill in 2023. So that's the conditions that the men are working in. And when you think, even when they're operating that machine, they've still got to get between the pipes, and they've still got to get between the wood and the props, and get in and hew that coal out and fill it up with tubs. So even when they're not using the pick and shovel, they're still doing very, very manual work in order to get the coal out. I'm waiting for the group to come out in a minute, but just a couple of things to say as well, and then I'll answer any questions. But we've also got to remember that apart from men down here, they had ponies down here. And in a deep mine, the ponies would have gone down all of their working lives. So they would have gone down at about the age of 4, and they would have been down approximately, depending on, just like men, and as you asking in the queue, sir, how old, what was the age limit for going down a mine? It was as long as you're fit. As soon as you weren't fit, then you went onto the screens and you were doing the sorting, because they had to earn the money to pay for the house, because they were given a house that he was as well, and coal and free coal. But the ponies would have gone down at 4 and would have been down approximately 25 years. They would not have seen the light of day. Only in post-Second World War, in 1948, when the mines were nationalised, did the men have a 2 weeks holiday, the pitmen's holiday, the last week in July, the first week in August. You're nodding, yeah?
Yeah.
You know all about that, great. And they would have taken the ponies above ground for 2 weeks and put them into pasture, and then they were back down. But in a drift mine, they would have been going in and out. Or the last pit pony ever to leave the coal mine was in approximately 1986, and it was in Ellington Colliery in Northumberland. And where did he end up? Beamisch Museum. Yeah? He ended these days in the fields that you've been walking past. So that's a nice stop after the horrible history I've been giving you. Yeah? I'm going to take you down there now, and I'll talk about work and any questions while it's coming up. Thanks, folks. See you later. Right, follow me. If you want to take film, if you want to go in front, I'm happy.
It's
to
okay.
do the lead.
Thank you.
You can do your film. this is the I've got a flood and we have to keep cleaning it. So
Right.
and this is where the iron's coming from.
Uh-huh.
It's so wet.
Right, I'm just going to sit on that stool plate. That's for me to sit on because I need to use it for a couple of reasons. Yeah. Yeah, you come in. Please come in if you want to. Yeah. Great stuff. Right. You see all right at the back there? You all right?
Yeah.
You hear me? The fan's very loud. The last fan that we had went kaput last year when there was a tour down here, and it took a few months to repair, but they've put it on super power now, so it's a bit chilly down here. Right, before I tell you about the wages, let me tell you about the conditions that we were working in here. The men used to draw lots to see where they were working. The geology of the County Durham coalfield, quite simply, is the further you get to the coast, the higher the mines, and the higher the seams. So, for example, Monk Wearmouth Colliery, which is where Sunderland Football Ground is now, the Stadium of Light, was Monk Wearmouth Colliery. And that was sunk about the same period of time as the Mahogany Drift here in 1855, 1856. It was operating right through until the early 1980s, and that was a mile deep and went 6 to 7 miles under the North Sea. Yeah, but the seams were 12 feet more than 2 meters high. But the further you go inland, the lower the seams. So 4'6" where you are at the back is the maximum height in around here. Yeah, and the lowest is 18 inches. So the men used to draw lots to see where they were going to be working. It was called a cavil, and a cavil is a Scandinavian derived word for stick. So if they drew the short cavil, the short stick, the short straw if you want, then they would be working 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, on their backs, on their bellies, yeah? And for the same wages as a man on a 4'16", yeah? They would use seats like this. This is called a cracket stool. My mum's ancestors, the Donahues from Tipperary, came over during the potato famine of the 1840s to County Durham, to Sunderland, and their men would have taken this down. How much easier it is, rather than to be on your hunches like that, but to be sitting on a stool with a pick and shovel, or putting it on your knee on it and bracing at a low height. Every time they filled one of those tubs with approximately 406 kilos of coal, half a ton, then they've got sixpence in old money. Yeah? 2.5 pence today, pet. Yeah? Tell you what the cost of living is in 1913. Well, a loaf of bread's approximately 2pence. So every time you fill a tub of coal, there's 3 loaves of bread on the table. Or a couple of kilos of potatoes, a few pounds of potatoes. Milk was approximately 2pence halfpenny, so there's a couple of pints of milk. Yeah? But, and I'm waving my finger, no, I'll wave my stick, yeah? If you underfill it, or if you put a bit more stone in it, you're going to lose half a tub's wages. You're only going to get 3pence very easily when you're working in that. So the men would have worked in pairs, the putter and the hewer. They would have tied a brass token to the bottom of the tub with a number on it, which corresponded with their wages. So when the coal tubs went out and the men were still underground, that would correspond with which men had hewn the coal and which men had pushed the tubs out, had putted the tubs out. All for sixpence. I was watching a television programme last night. Do you want me to tell you about the television programme? Yeah? No, it wasn't Coronation Street, I think. No, I wouldn't be honest with it. It was called Earth. I was sitting watching it with my wife, and this particular episode was called Green, and it was about trees. And 300 million years ago, where you're standing, this was a tropical rainforest, yeah? So imagine you're not in Beamish now, you're in Indonesia, Malaysia, Brazil, somewhere lovely, yeah? And this program was talking about those trees 300 million years ago, mostly internally of a light cork texture with a hard bark around it, falling into the ground, and then very shortly afterwards an ice age following. That trees compresses, and what does it form? Coal. So when you're going out of this pit, get dirty, touch that coal, and you're touching a tropical rainforest from 300 million years ago that fueled the Industrial Revolution, that fueled the economy of County Durham right through until the 1980s. Any questions?
Is this actually the coal seam then?
It is.
These walls are
Yeah.
the actual coal.
They are, and what in some mines they did, and that's why some of this is still preserved. In some mines, they would leave a bit of coal at the bottom and a bit of coal at the top. Yeah, they would work in the gap in between, and then when the seam had ended, when they couldn't see much coal, they would start to work back and drop the props and drop the coal and drop the floor and drop the ceiling. Yeah, and then bring the coal out. So yeah, this is there won't be very much coal behind here, I'd imagine, so they've just gone as far as they can on this particular seam, yeah.
Would they have to mine in pitch black?
They would have done, yeah, that's what they would have
Nowhere,
done. Yeah,
because they've known that fine.
yeah, just one candle light. That's not to see in. If that flame turns to blue, we've got carbon monoxide. That's just showing blue. If that's showing blue, then that's a test. Then they bring the canaries down, the birds down, to test for gas. And if the canary falls off its perch, then we get out of here quite quickly. So that isn't really a light. It's more, to answer your question, young man, which is a great question, it's more to do with a visible sign of safety. Yeah. So they're working in the dark.
What about ventilation? What about the air?
The ventilation would have come from the egg boilers outside, there's like machinery eventually, but before that it was the trappers opening the doors, the little kids working. And those children weren't working 8 hours a day, those children were working 12 and sometimes up to 14 hours a day, yeah? They were working double shifts up until 1842.
Sorry, I don't speak English. Сеп, спроси, из какого дерева делали эти все подпорки?
She's asking what kind of wood is this?
This would be pine woods, yeah. So
Просто
again,
сосна,
yeah.
просто.
Yeah. I'll answer any other questions on when we get out, because I'm conscious there's other groups in there, but I'm happy to answer any questions and go into the lamp room with you and show you the lamp room as well, if you want to. There's no obligation to do that, yeah? But I'll go in the lamp room if anybody wants to join me, okay?
Thank you.
Thanks very much indeed. Thanks for listening
you.
and asking such good questions, yes.
Мы были в музее, где лошади были под землей.
Ну, тут были тоже были, тут тоже были, я тебе потом объясню, но...
No view.
No light,
Yeah.
they couldn't see anything,
Yeah.
blind.
See anything
They was blind,
you
yeah.
can see there, yeah, absolutely. So it's just by feel.
Ага, yeah.
Touch.
How mouse.
Yes, well, yeah, exactly, yeah. And by smell, yeah.
Chodź, chodź, no chodź.
Oh!
Uważaj na głowę.
Old woman.
Oh no, not at all, not at all.
I am 46.
Oh, that's not all. That's not all. He's a child.
42 years.
Yeah, for me, yeah. That's 65.
65 more.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, nice one.
He's up there.
Когда заходили, он показал, что 10 человек зашло. Я сейчас покажу вещи. Już?
Cheers, Eric.
Chodź,
Всем,
Chodź, chodź, no.
Там, видишь, мы вышли, и он назад сделал
No da,
на этой доске.
da.
Thanks a lot.